It is a truth, universally acknowledged, that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. Although, if I am being completely honest, in my house, the truth was quite the opposite. It is the women without a fortune who desperately need a man. My name is Elizabeth Bennet. I am 20 years old, the second of 5 sisters, and according to my dear mother, my sole purpose on this earth is to find a husband before poverty devours us. To understand my situation, you must understand an absurd law of our time called the entailment. You see, the beautiful house I live in, Longbourn, does not really belong to us. Due to an ancient legal whim, the property can only pass into the hands of a male heir. And since my father only produced daughters, the day he dies, my mother, my 4 sisters, and I will be thrown out onto the street, without a penny, leaving our home to a distant cousin we do not even know. So, can you blame my mother for her hysteria when Mr. Bingley, an immensely rich and single young man, rented the neighboring estate of Netherfield? It was as if we had been thrown a lifeline of pure gold. Mr. Bingley did not take a second to confirm that the rumors about his fortune were true, and that his good nature surpassed them all. It was almost comical to see how quickly his eyes found my sister Jane, and how she, with that sweetness that sometimes drives me crazy, returned his gaze. In less than 2 dances, it was clear that Bingley had fallen for the angel of the Bennet family. But, as in any good fairy tale, Prince Charming did not come alone. He brought his best friend, Mr. Fitzwilliam Darcy. Possessor of £10,000 a year and owner of half of Derbyshire. For the first 5 minutes, the whole room admired him for his bearing and his fortune. By the 6th minute, after seeing how he looked down his nose at us, everyone in Meryton wanted to hang him.
Come, Darcy, you must dance. Let me introduce you to my partner's sister, Elizabeth Bennet. She is right over there.
She is tolerable, but not handsome enough to tempt me. And I am in no humor at present to give consequence to young ladies who are slighted by other men. You had better return to your partner and enjoy her smiles, Bingley. You are wasting your time with me.
Not handsome enough to tempt me. In that precise moment, I declared war on Fitzwilliam Darcy. My pride, I admit, was wounded, and my prejudice against him was set in stone. My opinion of him only worsened when we had to live under the same roof. Jane fell ill at Netherfield, and I went to care for her. There, I had to endure Bingley's insufferable sister, who never missed a chance to flatter Darcy. One night, the conversation turned to what they considered an accomplished woman.
Oh, an accomplished woman must have a thorough knowledge of music, singing, drawing, and the modern languages. And of course, she must possess a certain something in her air and manner of walking.
All this she must possess. But to all this she must yet add something more substantial, in the improvement of her mind by extensive reading.
I am no longer surprised at your knowing only 6 accomplished women, Mr. Darcy. I rather wonder at your knowing any.
Are you so severe upon your own sex?
I never saw such a woman. Such capacity and taste and elegance and intelligence combined. She must be a fearsome creature. He watched me in a way that made me feel uncomfortable. A mix of reproach and fascination. I, of course, was too blinded by my dislike to see that my insolence, instead of repelling him, was captivating him. Used to women who nodded at everything he said, my defiance was intoxicating to him. But to me, he was still just a snob. And then, as if fate wanted to prove me right, I met Mr. George Wickham, a militia officer, handsome, charming, and with a story to tell. A story about Mr. Darcy.
The late Mr. Darcy raised me like a son, Miss Bennet. In his will, he left me a parish, so I could be a clergyman and have a decent life. But when he died, the present Mr. Darcy, out of pure jealousy, denied me the inheritance. He left me on the street. I had to join the army to survive.
That is despicable! I knew he was an arrogant man, but I did not think him capable of such cruelty. Why did I believe a stranger so easily? because his story fed exactly what I already wanted to think about Darcy. My vanity was bruised by that slight at the ball, and Wickham's lies were the perfect poison to rot any hint of sympathy I might feel for the master of Pemberley. From that day on, Darcy was not just unpleasant, he was a villain. While my hatred for Darcy grew, the threat of our entailment knocked on the door. Literally. Mr. Collins, the cousin who would inherit our house, came to visit. He was a pompous, fawning clergyman with absolutely no common sense. And, in an act of supposed charity, he decided the best way to make up for stealing our home was to marry one of us. He chose me.
My dear cousin Elizabeth, my reasons for marrying are three. First, every clergyman must set the example. Second, I believe it will add greatly to my happiness. And third, my noble patroness, Lady Catherine de Bourgh, has advised me to seek a wife. So, knowing that you will one day be poor, I offer you my hand. And do not worry, I will not reproach you for your lack of fortune when we are married.
Mr. Collins, I am very sensible of the honor of your proposal, but it is absolutely impossible for me to accept it.
Ah, I understand. It is usual with elegant young ladies to reject a man the first time. I shall expect your acceptance upon my second attempt.
Mr. Collins, I am not one of those young ladies. I am telling you, no! We would be the most miserable couple in England. After my resounding no, my house became a battlefield. My mother threatened to never speak to me again if I did not marry him. My father, with his usual irony, threatened the same, but only if I did accept him. What I did not foresee was the speed of spite. 3 days was all it took for Mr. Collins to transfer his eternal love to the next available woman. My friend Charlotte Lucas, aware that at 27 romance is a luxury she could not afford, accepted his hand before he finished his sentence. I judged her harshly for marrying without love, blind to the fact that my freedom to choose was in reality a privilege she simply did not have. Just when I thought things could not get worse, Mr. Bingley suddenly left Netherfield, leaving my sister Jane heartbroken. I was convinced that his haughty sister and, above all, Mr. Darcy, had driven him away from her, because they considered our family unworthy. With my sister's heart broken and my patience exhausted, I traveled to Kent to visit my friend Charlotte, now Mrs. Collins. I did not know I was walking straight into the lion's den. Mr. Collins lived under the shadow of Rosings Park, the home of his patroness, Lady Catherine de Bourgh, a tyrannical woman who turned out to be, to my horror, Mr. Darcy's aunt. And of course, he was there visiting. For weeks, our interactions were strange. He would appear during my walks, watch me in silence, and one night, while I was playing the piano, he approached me. I felt the need to attack him before he attacked me. Do you mean to frighten me, Mr. Darcy, by coming in all this state to hear me? I am not afraid of you. My courage always rises with every attempt to intimidate me.
I know you do not mean that. You enjoy exposing my faults. Like that time in Meryton, when I said I did not want to dance with you.
Well, you will agree that your behavior was not the most social.
True, but I do not have the talent which some possess, of conversing easily with those I have never seen before. I cannot feign interest in their concerns.
My fingers do not move over this instrument in the masterly manner I see in other women. But I have always supposed it to be my own fault, because I will not take the trouble of practicing.
You are right. We both lack practice.
It was a moment of truce. For a second, I saw a shy man instead of a proud one. But my prejudice was too high a wall, and I would soon discover a truth that would destroy everything. The next morning, that fragile truce was blown to pieces. I discovered from an overly talkative colonel that it had been Darcy, and no one else, who convinced Bingley to abandon my sister Jane. I faked a migraine to be alone that afternoon. I was boiling with rage when he burst into my sitting room. I expected anything, except what came out of his mouth.
In vain I have struggled. It will not do. My feelings will not be repressed. You must allow me to tell you how ardently I admire and love you.
What?
I have tried to avoid it. I have thought of the inferiority of your family, of the total lack of social propriety, of the degradation it means for me to ally myself with people so far beneath my level. But my affection is stronger. I ask you to accept my hand.
Have you ever received a declaration of love that sounds like a death sentence? He was offering me his heart while trampling on my dignity, my family, and my origins. The anger exploded inside me. Even if my feelings were favorable, do you think there is any way I could accept the man who has ruined the happiness of a most beloved sister? You have condemned her to suffering.
I did it because I believed she did not love Bingley. I saved her from an unequal marriage.
And that is not all. I know your history with Mr. Wickham. I know how you ruined him, how you left him in poverty out of pure envy.
So this is your opinion of me. I thank you for being so honest. My apologies for having taken up so much of your time.
You are wrong, Mr. Darcy. You could have offered me the whole world, and still, from the very first moment I met you, your arrogance, your conceit, and your selfish disdain for the feelings of others built a wall between us. You are the last man in the world I could ever be prevailed upon to marry. The next day, he handed me a letter. There were no apologies for his pride, but there were explanations. As I read it, the world as I knew it crumbled.
Do not expect reproaches, Miss Bennet. I only demand that you read this. Regarding your sister, I was wrong. I saw no affection in her and wanted to protect my friend. But regarding George Wickham, you must know the truth. My father left him money, yes. Wickham squandered it on gambling and vices in less than 3 years. He returned demanding more. When I refused, he tried to exact the vilest revenge. He secretly courted my younger sister, Georgiana, only 15 years old, and tried to elope with her to steal her immense fortune. I saved her just in time. That is the man you defend.
Blind, partial, prejudiced, absurd. Until this moment, I never knew myself. I had been so proud of my own discernment, so sure of my ability to read people. And I had been wrong about everything. I had despised an honorable man for being clumsy at expressing himself, and I had trusted a monster simply because he knew how to smile. Months passed. My aunt and uncle took me on a trip north to Derbyshire. Coincidentally, or perhaps by fate, we passed by Pemberley, Mr. Darcy's estate. I was assured he was in London, so I agreed to tour it. It was the most beautiful place I had ever seen. No ostentatious gold, just pure natural elegance. His housekeeper could not stop talking about how kind and sweet her master had been since he was a child. And then, he appeared. The earth should have opened up and swallowed me. I had insulted him cruelly at our last meeting. I expected him to throw me out. Instead...
Miss Bennet, what a pleasant surprise. Have you had a good journey? Would you like me to introduce you to my sister? She is here.
His arrogance was gone. He was polite to my aunt and uncle, people of the merchant class he would have previously ignored, and his eyes looked at me with a devotion that took my breath away. On the grounds of Pemberley, walking by his side, I realized a terrifying truth. I had fallen in love with Fitzwilliam Darcy. But my happiness lasted barely 2 days. A letter arrived from Jane. Our youngest sister, Lydia, only 16 years old, had eloped with a regiment, and the man she had run away with was George Wickham. For those who do not understand the 19th century, let me be clear. A young woman who runs away with a man without being married does not just destroy her own life, she destroys her entire family. The disgrace was a contagious disease. No respectable man would ever marry Jane, nor me, nor my other sisters. We were ruined, socially dead. It was in that precise moment of absolute misery when the door opened and Darcy walked in. He found me dissolved in tears. In my despair, unable to contain myself, I blurted out the whole sordid story. I saw his face lose its color and his jaw tense, hardening like stone. He barely muttered a hasty apology and walked out the door. Darcy left instantly. I knew what that meant. Our disgrace was too great. I would never see him again. Weeks later, a miracle occurred. We were informed that Wickham had been found and had agreed to marry Lydia, saving our honor in exchange for my uncle paying his massive debts. Or so we thought. The rumor that Mr. Darcy and I were secretly engaged reached the ears of his aunt, Lady Catherine, who crossed the country in the middle of the night to demand an explanation.
I have heard the most infamous rumor. It is said that my nephew plans to marry you, a boy of his lineage, with a young woman of no family connections, whose sister is a runaway. Will you allow the shades of Pemberley to be thus polluted? I demand you promise me that you will never accept a proposal from him.
I will make no such promise. I am a gentleman's daughter, and in that, Mr. Darcy and I are equals. You have no right to dictate my fate. If your nephew loves me, and I love him, neither you nor all your money can prevent it. I demand that you leave my house. I kicked her out. It was the most terrifying and satisfying moment of my life. What I did not know was that Lady Catherine, furious, went straight to complain to Darcy in London, and by telling him of my rebellion, instead of dissuading him, she gave him exactly the hope he needed. Bingley had returned for Jane, and with him returned the man I thought I had lost forever. We went for a walk, caught in a silence that weighed more than any words. By then, I had discovered the truth about our rescue. It had not been my uncle. It had been Darcy. He found Wickham, paid his debts, bought his commission in the army, and bribed him with thousands of pounds to marry Lydia. He had saved my family from ruin, risking his own pride by dealing with his worst enemy. All for me. Mr. Darcy, I cannot keep this secret any longer. I must thank you for what I know you did for my sister. If my family knew the magnitude of your sacrifice...
Your family owes me nothing. I respect them greatly, but I thought only of you. You are too generous to trifle with my feelings. If your feelings are still what they were last April, tell me so at once. My affections and wishes are unchanged, but one word from you will silence me on this subject forever.
My feelings are so different from that day that I am afraid you will have to tolerate me for the rest of your life. I saw him let out a deep sigh, as if he had been holding his breath for months. Without another word, he took my hands and kissed each one with such reverence that I knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that the war between us was finally over. From then on, it was a whirlwind of happiness. Bingley, with Darcy's support, proposed to my sister Jane. My mother, upon learning she would have 2 married daughters, and one of them with 10,000 a year, nearly fainted. She went from hating Mr. Darcy to declaring him her favorite son-in-law. But my mind was already elsewhere. It was in that small church, waiting for the moment to join my life with his. I will never forget the weight of my hand on his at the altar. As we said our vows, I understood that we both had to die a little to be reborn together. He had to shed his pride, and I had to tear my prejudice out by the roots. When the vicar pronounced us husband and wife, the outside world ceased to exist. There was only the certainty that finally we were equals. Today, I walk the halls of Pemberley not as a frightened guest, but as its mistress. And sometimes, when my husband gets too serious, I still tease him by reminding him of that day in Meryton when he found me not handsome enough. He just smiles, kisses my forehead, and reminds me that I am the only woman who has ever managed to defeat him in a debate. And honestly, that is a victory I plan to enjoy every single day of my life.